Hello, welcome to We Will Fix It, a Podaholiks podcast with Colin from WeWillFixIt.com this week. Well, what a conversation. We talked about tennis, we talked about Suzuki vans, we talked about air conditioning, and we talked about a whole lot more. We actually did talk about home repair and improvement, and you're going to love that conversation. Let's get right to it. Here's Colin.
Let's crack on.
Right, I'm ready when you are.
Because you got tennis to get to.
No, we got all sorts before then.
Oh, yeah,
12,
sure. Hold
15 on the dot. We're out the door.
You got a coffee still to have.
Oh, tell you what, coffee. I don't know what it is, but more and more, the longer we work here, that kind of ritual of the first coffee and then the catch up with the boys and work out what's been going on, it's quite standardised these days.
Colin, WeWillFixIt.com, by the way, is who I'm talking to. It's the We Will Fix It show. Podaholiks, if you're wondering where you're finding it. And across the world and across the globe, as we were just talking, also putting it up on YouTube.
We're going to be YouTubers.
I know. Well, actually, that is one of Glenn's plans. The Glenn, that car guy, the car clinic, is he wants us to get, I think you need 1,000 subscribers, and then you can go use the YouTube space.
Crikey.
So we're aiming.
That sounds like a plan, doesn't it?
Can you imagine?
I wonder whether, because as you know, I absolutely adore cars as well. And I wonder whether I can persuade Glenn into those crazy projects. I bring all sorts of rubbish to him. And he has his head in his hands on a frequent basis when I turn up with something else that's utterly terrible.
So last week you mentioned the Land Rover that you had found. And
oh, yeah. No, that one didn't come off in the end.
I did mention it to him. He rolled his eyes into the back of his head.
Well, they're horrendous. I mean, that vintage of... that was a 2008 Range Rover that had been kind of offered my way. And in the end, he took it to one of these get your cash in 30-minute type outfits.
How much did they give him for it?
$7,500. But it was...
That's not bad.
Well,
considering all the issues.
Considering the issues. Well, they found another 20 or 30. So he sent me a message saying, well, you got off scot-free on that one. But, you know, for me, cars are just a hobby. I absolutely adore it. So I'm not looking to make money out of it. It's just a bit of fun.
So I'm curious why, and we will get to repair questions and other things. Of course, sure. If you're tuning in and people are going, I thought this was a repair show. It is. We get to it. It's a meandering repair show.
Yeah. We talk cars as well. Repairing cars. There we go. There's a nice segue.
You guys use all sorts of... I mean, your prime vehicle in the fleet are Volkswagen vans.
Yeah.
Why Volkswagen vans?
We've tried everything. Absolutely everything. And over the years, in the early days, we started off with 3 Suzukis.
Okay. How are those?
Those were, we bought those brand new actually,
oh.
And they were good, but they were just a little bit lightweight.
Okay.
Which was the issue. We carry quite a lot of weight in our vans, and they were screamers. So on that basis, we had them for a year or two, and then the oddest thing, I got offered. In fact, we had lots of different things. We had Renaults for a while, and
I mean,
and
you
that kind of thing.
Tried out the European context. Okay, I get it. And,
yeah.
And you see a lot of them, like they're the small transports and those boxy little things that are cool. Yeah.
Yes. So the concept really was that we try everything, but there's one critical factor for us, which is, can you get it into the underground car parking? Because a lot of our customers are in apartment blocks.
I always forget about that.
And the lowest height that we found in Dubai is 2 meters 10. And a Volkswagen Transporter is 2 meters 7.
Okay.
So you need to be pretty confident before you're going through that at speed. But it kind of started there. And as well as that, we're kind of a European outfit here, so we like the idea of European vehicles, and we need a good spare supply. So all of our vehicles now come on an agreement that we have with DHL. So that all the DHL yellow vans, once they've finished with their kind of lease period, we've got first option to get those, and so they've come with a great service history and ready to go for us for another.
Well, see, that's what I was wondering as I drove up today, because we actually are at the We Will Fix It hub of activity. I noticed there's a couple new vans out there, although they weren't the yellow DHL color, but maybe they changed the livery on them.
No. What they are, it's actually, they look immaculate, but they're our oldest vans. So
really?
We spray.
They look fantastic.
Yeah, I know. We've got a really good respray guy. Yeah. So what happens is they come into the fleet, and then we replace the fleet a third of it every year.
A third of the fleet gets dropped off every... That's a lot of vehicles.
Yeah, it is. Well, best part of 20 to 25 vehicles a year that are swapped out, just to keep the fleet reliable. So at the end of it all, we don't really want lots of purple vans to be driving around Dubai. So we respray them back to white, and before we sell them, make sure that we're all ready to go. And we have an amazing group of combination traders, and then also the small businesses that have used our products and our vans rather, and it works really well. And we send quite a lot to Africa. Would you believe?
Really?
Oh. Yeah, loads of our vans end up in Nigeria for some reason.
Okay.
So it just depends.
You get people lining up at the door because they know that you're going to turn out, a third of your fleet every year. They know that they've got good service, and
it's Glenn who does that for us. Glenn, the car guy, is as you know, at Sundance, and
Which convenient that it's only like 200 meters from
your works
shop.
Really well. Well, we followed Glenn. We've always followed Glenn. So where Glenn goes and where he ends up is kind of where our fleet ends up as well. And it works really well. I mean, as you know, he's a specialist in Volkswagen.
Yeah.
So literally, I geek out.
He likes Hyundai too, though. He bought a Hyundai when he moved here. So
yes,
but yeah, he loves Volkswagen.
Yeah, so it just means he's got that extra specialist knowledge that we need. It's actually, there's another parallel, isn't it? Working with experts. It really
someone
is
who knows
critical.
what they're doing, and that's what they do.
Yes.
Instead of being a jobber and just saying, "Yeah, I can do it."
Yeah, but then you end up in the most horrendous situation for us is that a van breaks down when it's not expected.
Yeah.
And that happens to so many businesses here. And we talk it through. And it's because they've got somebody who hasn't got a clue servicing their vans because they're trying to save 100 dirhams. Yeah. Well, what did you just lose on the 7-8 days that that vehicle's been out of commission?
And I'm thinking of fleet vehicles like you guys have got. They're full of gear. So suddenly if I've got to take that vehicle out of commission for a couple days, what do you do with all the gear in there? You've got to take the gear out because maybe you need to put it somewhere else, or that vehicle and that transport for the 3 guys who are going to be working it is completely 100% out of commission, and you're now down on service orders.
Well, the way that we do it actually is, believe it, now the size where we actually have 7 spare vehicles.
Wow!
So at any time,
why 7? What's with the number 7?
Right. Well, it just is as we scale that we have. There's normally 4 that are in for servicing at any one time. We have 2 vehicles that are for the 2 mobile drivers who are literally picking parts live for jobs and delivering them to jobs. And then we have 1 which is that emergency vehicle. So something that goes wrong. Actually, I should be up to 2 there, shouldn't I? So yeah, it kind of varies. Normally, actually, we have 1 emergency, so on that basis, 1's gone. But that's how you need to plan.
WeWillFixIt could actually be a traffic system because, as we know, you track all your vehicles.
Yes.
You're in touch with all these guys. You've got all these vehicles out over this. I mean, your catchment area is Dubai.
Yes.
You guys know the traffic and the traffic patterns better than almost anyone.
Yeah, and I mean, it's amazing the tracking system that we've got. Anywhere in the world, it's accurate to something like 30 centimeters. It's just incredible. Really good system that we've had for a number of years now.
You could start, getting yourselves onto some of these systems to let people know where the traffic. I mean, but everyone's using Google and all these other things. Yeah. But there are times when I'm not looking at my Google and I don't have my Google Maps out or my Waze out, and it's just like, okay, a quick update, what's going on, in this area.
Isn't that an idea?
You need to have that a little piece on your website.
I think
traffic.
Yeah, maybe. I think we've probably got a way to go to acquire that scale, if we're honest. Fun though.
My other side is I've got some children who've been traveling back in North America and they've been hit by the weather. And the first thing I was thinking about with weather is the weather patterns we get here. And that's another area that you guys spend a lot of time as hobbyists. You've been tracking weather for over 10 years. Absolutely.
I mean, it's critical to us. We were over the moon 3 days ago. We went above the historic average for this time of year. And the difference is there's a direct correlation for us in terms of the number of jobs that come through the door and the temperature. It's we literally use it to help demand track, and therefore, if you have a good idea of where your demand is, then at that point you've got a job to do to make sure your supply can match it. So, pretty standard from that perspective for any
people might not think about that though.
No, we didn't think about it for the first 3 or 4 years, and then suddenly it was.
What was the aha moment? What made you suddenly think, we need to track the weather to get a sense of what's going on?
Actually, it's scale. As you get bigger, when you've got kind of 3 or 4 guys, it doesn't actually take that many phone calls. But when you're at 20, 25 teams, as we were at kind of that stage, you need to make sure that you're ready to go and as efficient as you can be. So we look at every element that can help our efficiency. It's key.
I mean, that's important.
Really, yeah.
I was also sitting yesterday around the house, and I've got an old dog. I know you've got a younger dog, but still an old dog.
12.
Yeah? 12, okay.
Bless him, Bailey.
I was thinking dog doors yesterday.
Yes.
And cat doors.
Yeah.
And I know that there are folks selling them. I know that they're out there. Are you seeing more and more people in this climate saying, hey, you know what, we need to be thinking about access and exit for our pets? Or is it just something we don't think about?
No, Dan, my business partner, he's still bless him. He's back from last week. It was skiing. It's like every.
I know. I thought we were going to be talking about. I thought we were going to be talking Bulgaria today.
Yes, but unfortunately, so he's back from Bulgaria, and he's just arrived back in the office. But just as he was about to have to do the 3-hour drive across Bulgaria to Sofia to be able to fly back, he fell sick. But he still had to drive with the whole family in the car with him. And so he has spent the last 4 days, I guess, just shivering at home. But they're all sick.
Wow.
So Dan, his wife, and young daughter as well, which is just the horror story, isn't it? When everybody
that's
in
the
the house
worst.
is sick.
That is the worst.
Exactly. But Dan is the specialist actually in this. Every time he moves, the first thing that he organises is the cat doors, because he has four cats. It's perfectly feasible to do. There are issues with it because normally it's plate glass that you're dealing with. And again, double glazed plate glass has a vacuum inside it.
Right.
So you've got to make that decision that if you are going to do it, you kind of need to understand that when you hand that property back, if you are a tenant, then you're going to need to get a new double glazed panel in, which can be quite expensive.
Can you? I mean, when I look at my sliding doors in the back, can I just replace that slider? Do you think with a?
Yes. So normally,
I mean, then I've got to store it. At least you've got a warehouse, so you could put it in the back somewhere for yourselves.
Yeah. The way that people normally do it is normally the door is a 2-piece. That's the standard way. It doesn't really matter if it's a 1-piece, I guess. So take it to a glass specialist. Already have purchased said dog door. They'll first of all get rid of the vacuum, because you can't work with a vacuum in a dog door. Install so cut it to the right size. Install and then refit. Then at the time we need to hand it back, that the panel, in effect, the remains of that double glazed panel needs to come out and a replacement needs to go in. So very few people, it'll actually work out much more expensive, I think, to do the full fabrication of an additional panel or door for your needs. But that's the normal way people would do it.
I don't see a lot of them here, and that's why I was bringing it up. I mean, maybe it's just where I live, and the group that I'm hanging around with, just they're even at our own place, we just open the door for the dog and let him in and out. But I've often thought, man, it would make a lot more sense to have a doggy door.
It's quite a specialist thing. And there aren't many people that actually can do that. It's kind of complex when you're working with a vacuum unit that you need to get involved with.
I think people forget that that there is a whole vacuum issue here.
Yeah.
The other thing that I've found a lot of folks are dealing with, and people are, this is the time of year because it's cool.
Yes.
And doors are opening and closing, and it's wonderful weather, is how gummed up the rollers get on our windows, and screens are deteriorating, and all of that area becomes really important.
Agreed, and it's almost the worst climate in the world for a rolling door. If you can imagine, every time you're opening and closing and that roller's going round, sand gets in there, and at that point that sand starts to degrade the wheel itself. Indeed, in a lot of the main developments of Dubai, that's been going on now for 10, 15 years.
How do you clean it and keep it? I mean, clean it easy. Throw a hose down there or whatever, pressure wash. I mean, it's possible, but it's the lubrication that I always think about. Is okay. Now this thing is, if you're not using clean water, as you guys are producing, you're done for, because that.
Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, the most simple answer is use something like a graphite grease. But again, if you imagine, because there's a rail there, it can get quite messy in that respect. A lot of people would go WD-40 because there's less cleanup issue. But the issue with that is it's a bit too thin, really. So it doesn't work quite as well. It's a bit of a short-term solution. Yeah, good for a week, exactly. If you want to do it properly, then basically it's a question of taking that door out, and they do come out actually surprisingly easily.
Really?
Yeah. There's normally the wheel will have a retract on it if it is a fully installed system rather than just being aluminium thrown together door. There's quite a lot of them are, to be fair. Those will come out a lot easier. But basically, then at that stage, turn it upside down. You can even take the wheel mechanism out. They're always on 2 screws. Give it a really good clean. And again, for washout, actually, WD-40 is fantastic. Yeah. And then for me, I'd graphite grease it, but try and get it into the axle itself. A tiny little slither, and you don't need more than that on the actual rail, so that way you haven't got grease going all over your house, and that should be good.
What are your thoughts on sealing around the? I mean, there's a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of times you get these aluminum windows that are just kind of slapped in place, and we got a lot of these patio windows that are like that. And if you've been to any of these homes as they're being built, I mean, they are big open spaces that they fill. And there are times I look at some of the, you're walking around people's homes and walking around the new places. I'm going, I wonder if that's actually got any sealant around.
It's always the classic. It's the February classic here, which is the rains hit.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, it's like, oh no, you didn't. Yeah, when somebody's missed out sealing properly. But it's a constant battle. My place is now, what's mine, 12 years old, I guess. And every 2 to 3 years we reseal.
2 to 3 years you're resealing?
Yeah. It's one particular panel which gets the majority of the sun, and we're using top quality Western sealant. Okay, and
it still deteriorates after 2 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just because it's constantly in the sun. Yeah. And again, mine's quite a prime development, so there's a lot of places that have that similar issue.
Do you think other people are doing the same kind of maintenance of that level? Or
I think they're probably instead they're doing the cleanup after the water's come running through the house.
Why do you think people aren't? I mean, I'm thinking my own place, because we're constantly doing this. It's probably a yearly deal that we'll go and strip off some of this stuff for whatever reason. It just starts looking bad or whatever. But I know a lot of people just don't care.
No, it's true. I guess there's a real issue between that whole tenant-landlord relationship here, isn't there? Where the tenant feels, well, it's not my property, it's a landlord's property, so it's down to him to maintain it. And if he's not prepared to maintain it, then why should I? Yeah. Well, then you kind of have to. There's a balance point, in my view, which is first of all, what things are negative to your family life. Yeah. Okay. If you have one of those nightmare landlords that won't assist at all, then at that point, if it's negative to your family life, get it done. Yeah. Stop moaning about it. I mean, the emotional stress that people go through, and the stories we're hearing daily of just how upset they've got. Yeah. For 200, 300 dirhams worth of work is, you've got to put a price on that at some point. Yeah. And
people forget about that. 200 dirhams can be a lot of money, but still,
it is.
Peace of mind. What's your peace of mind worth that repair is going to last?
It is, but it's also the fact that the amount of anger and irritation that it causes to not do that job can be a real issue for a lot of people.
Well, we've in our own case, we've had some issues where we've had things that, because of the way some of the repair work is done, you put off getting it done, and which just means it takes longer to actually fix it because there's more that needs to be fixed.
Yeah. It's we have the oddest situation, with what we do. I've got a fantastic landlord. He's a complete legend, and he had the highest level contract in place on my property before I moved in from one of our competitors. Should have all been fine as a landlord. You've done your best. You've absolutely done your best. And I walked in, and at the time when I was already signed, I flicked the DEWA switch, and at that point, myself and the boys are working our way around. We went into the master bedroom, turned on the AC, which came on, and within 6 seconds, I knew I had a massive problem on my hands. I can actually just smell. It's not like the musty smell that you get now and again. It was much, much worse. And basically, it was the coils. The coils had been left. They hadn't been done as part of a contract. They hadn't specified any additional services that needed doing. The tenants weren't aware. And as a result, not only was the coil completely full of mold, but it had spread all the way down the duct as well. Oh, no. So I literally had to delay the family moving in whilst we spent 3 days going through the whole house. And this is one that's had tens of thousands spent on it every year on a contract, simply by the fact that the people weren't aware of what was needed.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Which makes me think, when we start looking at the industry here and we start looking at the repair industry and the rental industry, people are moving in. You guys obviously do the essential maintenance, and you've got the maintenance contracts, but it's almost like I want someone like you guys to come in and do a walk around, charge me the 500 dirhams, kind of like the house inspection.
Yep.
Whether I'm going for a package or not, as an aside, just to give me a list and saying, okay, these are things you're going to have to look at. These are things you might have to be thinking about. This is really a problem. And now you know before you take this place what you're in for.
Yes, but the issue
it's like a
with
home
that,
inspection.
The problem is that it's a really difficult one, because as a tenant, you do that. You then go to your landlord, and the landlord says, "Well, no, thank you. I won't have you as a tenant." And you have to move on to the next place, which has
never
very
thought of that
similar
part.
issues.
I never thought of that part.
Well, that's the practical scenario that a lot of tenants are stuck with. And it's so unfair. It is so unfair, and there's no recourse here, which is difficult. So you then end up in a situation where, if you imagine as a landlord, currently you're in a situation where rents are decreasing, so your return on investment is going down. And additional to that, you've got the tenant perspective, which is, yes, you can get better value right now, but a lot of the properties are going to be the same.
Yeah. And do you want to move? Do you want to? I mean,
yes.
You've moved a few times in your career here, so there's a cost.
Absolutely.
Plus the painting, plus the return of the old place to the what it was like when you moved in, and the new repairs, and getting it to be like you want it to be.
We worked that out actually for the last move. So I last moved 3.5 years ago, and I worked it out that it was 20,000 to do the move, which is just unbelievable, isn't it?
That's a lot of money.
But then you go through that whole process, and what I was really clear on, my wife needed a bit of understanding as well, but what I was really clear on was the difference in quality of life that it was going to provide. We had a growing family, we needed more space, and I was desperate to make that step, and then that's it. This is our final move. So much as I can predict ahead. And therefore, my relationship with the landlord is fantastic now, which is from his side, he can't believe he's got a tenant that says, whatever you do, don't send any workmen. I'll look after it, but it'll be done to my standard. Yeah. And from his side, he's like, okay, well, in which case we now trust you. So you tell us if you need help, I'll pay for whatever you ask me to pay for. But I've said conversely, if I've got free guys available, I'm not going to charge you anything. Yeah. So we have this kind of give and take, but that is unique in Dubai. There aren't many people that own a maintenance company. So, you've got that kind of dichotomy versus the general public. And the reality is, in a lot of these places, when they're over 2 or 3 years old, at that point, coils are going to be a problem without a doubt. Ducts are likely to be a problem. If it hasn't been maintained correctly, it's when you start to see the problems creeping in with the ACs.
Well, and when we talk about AC, and I think this is perfect time of year because many people aren't using their AC. I'm not sure it matters how tidy you are or what kind of facility you're in. Dust gets into everything here. We live in the desert.
Yes. And it can be completely beyond your control. Actually, one of the dirtiest AC systems that I've ever seen was in my brother and sister-in-law's place. And I know they're clean freaks. They've got a maid who bless her, she's absolutely wonderful and does a fantastic job for them. But there was something about this property that was just not right. And when we looked at it, in the end, I think I've fathomed it out. Actually, they've moved out of that place now. But it was the fresh air risers in the roof that just happened to be pointed in a direction towards the wasteland behind, where the prevailing wind was basically coming directly from that direction, straight the way down these fresh air risers. Wow. And away we went. So I fitted a quick extension that pointed, almost did a 90-degree turn and pointed it in the opposite direction, and things improved dramatically.
Wow.
So, but
I think people forget about those, and it could be. I mean, I live in an old place. I've got these vents that are in the walls, and one day I went and took a look at them, and I just said they're direct access into the villa. Now, at least there is a grate on it of sorts, but still, the potential for dust to enter is huge.
It is, but you need them because
Yeah.
otherwise you end up with slamming doors and the big rush of air that comes. But then there's more problems with that. There's a lot of developments in Dubai where they've actually shared that apartment blocks as a case in point, but villas as well. And people are like, we don't smoke, but I can smell smoke every night at my property.
What do we do in those situations? Like I mean, aside from knocking on your neighbor's door and saying, hey, but if I'm trying to maintain, some form of environmental safety in my own living conditions, what can I do when I'm in an attached situation like that?
That is an absolute case-by-case basis.
Really?
So what we would try and look at is, okay, how much of it is shared? And secondly, which one is the problem? And can we block that and still have enough circulation to be safe? And that's a really difficult one to look at.
People know this just from working in offices where one office is hot, one office is cold. It's exactly the same thing.
Yeah, but it's also in apartment blocks, the big difference or the big cause of pressure changes is actually the lift system. If you imagine, it works almost like a piston. So you're moving the air around. Yeah. And then as well as that, if you imagine at the top of the block, it's blowing a gale, very nature of high-rise buildings. Well, you need to equalise at that level as well as further down. So it's an amazing ecosystem, a high-rise building.
I'm always amazed at some of the high-rises you go to. And again, you guys have done some work in that where you're in the hallways and you can smell, 5 different people have had 5 different things. But the actual living accommodation doesn't seem to have the smell, so everything's venting into the hallway somehow.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's quite a standard thing.
Which can be horrible if you've got quite a different mix of foods going.
Absolutely. Well, it's a standard workaround if you need to take one pipe out of a communal area versus one from each property. It's kind of a standard thing.
How easy is it? While we're on this topic, how easy is it to vent my kitchen, hood? Fan, fume hood, whatever we want to call them, to the outside? Because I notice whether I go to Ace or anywhere that's selling these products, there's a lot that aren't being sold that exterior vent.
Yeah.
Is it hard to create that? Is it hard to do? Is it hard to create an actual vent outside for these?
Well, maybe let's start off with just explaining the different types of this.
Yeah.
So you've got basically a reciprocator style of extractor, which basically extracts through a carbon filter and then straight out the top of the same unit back into the same room of where you are. Okay,
nothing's going anywhere really.
No, you're going to get a very sticky filter, but that's about it. If for fat and the kind of thing you'd normally use it for. If you are going or want to go external, 2 different scenarios. Are you on an external wall or are you not? Okay. If you're on an external wall, dead easy. Out you go straight through the wall. Not dead easy. Really noisy, really dirty, but you've got one hole
because it's concrete. We're dealing with concrete walls. We got bricks.
Yes, exactly. So at that point, in effect, normally the extractor hood would come with a vent kit, or you can buy it.
Do they actually come with them most of the time?
It's normally like an additional part that's separate because it's an optional whether you need it or not.
Okay.
So in that situation, you buy the vent kit as well, and whoever installed it would basically use the flexible hose to get you from the unit to the exterior vent. And the second one is the scenario when you are on an internal wall, and that gets all a little bit more complex. Interestingly enough, I think that we did the property I currently live in 6 years before I moved into it, which is nuts, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it's nuts. And then I kind of looked at the stats, and we've now worked on somewhere around 38% of all the properties in the ranches, which is just nuts in 11 years, isn't it?
That's pretty incredible.
Ridiculous. Well, that's 8,500 properties. It's just incredible. It really is. So, but there's a particular way that we were doing it for a period in Sahil, where I am, which was basically to go through the void itself. So the ceiling void that's there, it is on an internal wall with mine, and then you can either create a segue, which is there is an extractor that's fitted in the ceiling there.
So a second piece.
But you have to position it so that it is after the extractor fan that's already there. Otherwise, you will be throwing fat straight away through your extractor fan, which is the way that a lot of people would do it, because it's much easier to do it before the fan rather than after. So I happened to stick my head up into that void recently, looked at it and went, you know what, I don't think there's many other people that would do it that way, and this one's been done like that. So I'm pretty confident that was us that did it a long time ago. And then at that point, so you can use that the same extractor, and the fan itself will basically work. Assume that it's operating correctly. There is basically a one-way shut-off on that will stop the seat backwards through to the rest of the unit. So.
How long is that? I mean, a job like that, of course, every place is every place. But if you were to guesstimate, is this
5 hours?
5 hours,
Yeah,
okay.
and it's painful because you're
I love the honesty.
Oh, man. It's if you imagine the point that you need to get to is so after that fan, but you need to be able to get a flexible hose that you're then going to attach to the other one, and you need access to a false ceiling.
And if you've got that fan back there, you've also got to make sure that you have power going back there.
Well, the power will already be there,
Okay.
which is great, but it's physically whether or not you get access. Dead easy if you've got ceiling tiles. Absolute nightmare if it's a false ceiling. You may well even need to create a new hatch just to be able to do that, or a repair section, cut the ceiling and repair it afterwards, which is where the kind of 5 hours comes in.
Yeah.
So
and who wouldn't create a hatch? Like, are there people who would not? Because I mean, I'm paranoid that it's gonna, if it ever needs to be repaired, I'm gonna have to cut it again. And if I hadn't made a hatch, then I'm gonna have to redo that gyprock. I'm gonna have to redo the paint.
Yeah, but then the other problem with that is, if you imagine a kitchen environment, you've already got 2 hatches, one for the AC and one also for the water heater. So at that stage, you end up with
a lot of hatches.
Who's living in your roof, you know? And so yeah, the aesthetic of it can be a little bit challenging from that perspective. But again, what you then try and do is see, okay, instead of doing an extra hatch, can we relocate some of the flexible hose that's there, because it is flexible, so that we can use one of the other hatches, so we then cut a hole in the ceiling, relocate both of the flexible hoses so that we can actually access it in the future from one of the same hatches. And that's joined up thinking, which again is quite rare in Dubai. But if my guys don't manage that at that point, well, there was a bit of a discussion to be had.
Your guys must also be great at troubleshooting the door situation that I seem to see in so many homes, where they either have expanded too much and then someone's come in, a jobber, and they've just planed it, and then you look at it at some point, and there are these huge gaps that you would never allow in the UK.
Yep.
You'd never allow in North America because it would be cold air and water blowing in. But here we have the opposite problem. It's almost like you're giving away your cooling, and that's costing you dirham upon dirham upon dirham, because it's just going out the door.
Isn't it odd that we've hit 2 points there which are exactly diametric, which is first of all these ridiculously enormous gaps.
Yeah.
How many people are out there with that constant issue of sand blowing under their doors, and
People are nodding their heads right now going, yeah, that's me.
Yeah, but that's the whole thing. Well, if you imagine if sand's getting in, then your cooling is getting out.
Yeah.
But then we have the dichotomy here, which is, but we need fresh air to basically keep oxygen levels where they should be, and indoor air quality where it should be. But that should ideally be a filtered scenario. So you've kind of got these 2 things that you need to look at. Well, then what do you do when you've got a door that has already been planed too short and you've got this huge gap there? And, in that situation, luckily, Ace Hardware is really good at this, which is to get a sweeper that you can fit to the door that will get that back to where it should be. But interestingly enough, developers are now listening.
Okay, this is good.
Yeah, Mira was the first place that I'd seen. There's probably others that have done it, but Dan lives in Mira, and my mother-in-law, we've got a place there as well. And they have this incredible system when it works, which is a little button that sits on the, if you can imagine the door closed, just below the lower hinge. Yeah. There is a like a button that pushes, so that when you fully close the door, it pushes this button, which then pushes down onto the floor a little strip with a rubber piece on to seal it properly.
Oh, you know what? I saw something on Instagram yesterday that is based on that scenario for actually a locking mechanism for your door.
Yes, yeah, it would work as well. It's very clever. Yeah. But the one difficulty is sand.
So does it mess up the system and it doesn't work?
Well, I have to be careful what I say here because I greatly appreciate being able to work in email properties, but it needs maintenance.
Right. Well, and that's so many of the pieces. I think that would be the sort of the caveat on anything we're talking about here. Is that ultimately we've got a lot of great systems, and that sounds like a wonderful system. I'm thinking I need that at my place, but if you don't maintain it, that grit gets in there, causes it to be sticky. It's never going to work.
Do you know? Actually, let's tackle that one head on, which is. You hear so many gripes from people about saying, you know what, the properties here, they're so poor and they haven't been made properly and all the rest of it. That's actually really not the case. You know, the difference is we're in an incredibly harsh environment. The properties here generally are really well made on the whole. And they just, because of the environment that we're in, they require maintenance. You know, back in the UK, it's almost the opposite scenario, which is it watertight? Is it windtight? That's the main things you need to think about. And the exterior is going to degrade through water leakage and that kind of thing. Here, we've got that combination of AC, which, again, vibrations from all of that system, but something that wouldn't be seen very much in certainly Western Europe, where I'm from. You've got a pumping system that's required for just getting water into the property, and the whole property itself is going to expand and contract to the degree that you never see almost anywhere else in the world, apart from maybe the hottest areas of America. And all of these things a property has to deal with. Well, that's a heck of an ask list, isn't it? So I don't agree with the whole scenario that people have, which is, you know, they're poorly made. They're really not. The majority are really well made. It's just it takes maintenance to deal with this environment.
And finding the right materials, and as you said, back to this hinge issue. Making sure that you keep it clean.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that would work absolutely fine with a bit of WD-40 on a regular basis. So no issue at all with that.
So just getting door sweepers, that's probably the easiest way to deal with
the big gap underneath the doors. I'd also think about draft excluder as well.
Well, what's that?
That's an absolute standard in the UK. Everybody would do it, which is a roll that you get normally about a quarter-inch thick. It used to be just foam. These days they actually have the that kind of cushioned rubber. Love that stuff. Absolutely genius, because it lasts for so much longer. You know, with foam, once you've compressed it for a couple of weeks, then you're pretty much done. But the new versions are really, really good in terms of lasting for a lot longer. The issue tends to be if they're self-adhesive, which most of them are, then that adhesion can be a little bit more difficult. So I think it's fair to say that you still need to spend a bit of time with it. But again, it's amazing what a bit of super glue can do when the adhesion comes off. But that should allow you to create a pretty good seal around the door.
So how hard is it if, so we got a nice seal around the door. Hopefully we've moved into a place that's newer and we're following the program. If you've moved into somewhere where they haven't followed the program and they've just been planing and doing whatever, and now they got to the point where that door is a way bit too small, is it easy to get doors replaced and those kind of things?
It's really easy. However, it costs a fortune. That's always the issue, isn't it? So we've got a fantastic carpenter that we use for various bits and bobs, and he can create anything, and you wouldn't tell the difference. He's that good. But he's not cheap, and the reason is it's the same thing, isn't it? Which is, if you want to buy quality, I'm sorry to say, chaps, but the days of the one that I love, James, and you must have heard this over the years, is, when people say, oh, you know what, I've got this picture of this absolutely amazing TV unit and I need somebody who can do it super cheap. Yeah. And there was it's the standard thing that I think it's the Pakistanis that have the real history of carpentry going back and have kind of exported here. And people think, oh, low cost of labour, it's going to cost nothing. Rubbish. The cost is in the material and in the labour, the time it takes to make these things. So they're no longer, 20, 25 years ago, maybe you could find the cheap Pakistani carpentry shop that was knocking out amazing stuff for virtually nothing. That went a long time ago.
Oh, sure. Licensing,
quality. Yeah, exactly.
Licensing, warehousing.
Yes.
They got to put up their people in accommodation.
The visas.
Even the guys who are doing gardening. I mean, gardener guys around.
Yeah, of course.
Those guys. I talk to them in the mornings when I'm leaving, and just you get to know them around your neighborhood. They're telling me the fees. Fees, they can't afford to have all the guys they used to have 5 years ago.
Absolutely,
it's crazy.
It is, but
but then at least you get you're getting good work.
Exactly, and it's all part of that regulation. You and I have both been here a long time, and you think about the slightly wilder approach to things when we first arrived.
Yes.
Well, all of this is part of Dubai's push, isn't it?
Yeah.
To be more professional in that respect.
And I like the safety side of it. I like that when you're buying products, whether it's doors or people are coming in to repair stuff like you guys do, that everyone is working usually to some standard, because ultimately the municipality could check them out. Not as much as as one would hope.
See,
but I mean, do they spot check your industry?
Not as much as I'd like to see, for sure. There is the reporting systems in effect that are now in place, whereby when bad work is done, people now are able to report that poor work, and it can be dealt with. But I still think there are a lot of outfits that probably aren't working at the quality level that they should be, and I don't think that should be acceptable to anyone. So just don't accept the work. Why would you pay for something when they've bodged it?
Yeah, exactly.
It's I still don't understand that mentality, and it's something that since day one I've been adamant about here at We Will Fix It, that our guys don't bodge things. It's still now and again we catch something, but when we do, you won't believe it's full management team, it is boards, it is photographs, it is disciplinary processes here.
Really?
Our guys need to understand that quality is the only way that we're prepared to do it. Anything else that they do is just not acceptable.
Well, it just takes one bad experience, and word of mouth still is a big thing, and it's like, oh, don't use those guys.
Massive here in Dubai, and we are. It literally is a SWAT team at the time when we find that anybody has done something like that. But the lovely thing is, because we've been consistent with that now for 10 years, everybody who works here knows what happens. And they don't want to be at the centre of that. So it's really rare. And, I would say we literally get, if we got one a year, I'd be surprised now where it's really on that level.
That's it
is. Well, considering, we're doing anything between kind of 80 and 120 jobs a day now, it's important that we're on that level. That said, it is maintenance and things still go wrong. So in that situation, that's the whole point of coming to somebody who offers a warranty. Any of the really good people in Dubai, and it's not just us, I prefer to talk on behalf of the quality side of our industry. But the first question I'd be asking if I'm calling up anybody is, what's the warranty? What happens if something goes wrong? And the next question I'd ask is that your warranty, or is that on the parts that you supply? If it's the parts that you supply, ignore it. Because the reality is the way that any parts supplier that offers a warranty here will operate is they will want that part back for them to be able to repair it, not to give you a replacement cribble-free. Now imagine that's your pump.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to take this out. We're going to take this out. We're going to take it to a supplier who's then got to verify to see whether or not there's a warranty-based issue. He's then going to make that repair. He's going to need parts of that repair that he may well not have before he brings that back to be refitted.
That's 5 days.
At best, absolute best. So 5 days where you're going to be either on, at best, again, a DEWA bypass, or alternatively, you're going to be without water. Well, I'm sorry, ma'am, sir, but that's not something we can change. It's just, I find that ridiculous.
Is there a home repair association where you guys who are in the business get together even informally and just have a chat, or not yet?
Not officially, no. There's a couple of the quality operators that I informally chat with about various issues that we share. And that's really useful. I've got to say, that's really useful. And I think more than ever, there's been a real step towards quality recently with a number of the operators, which is really positive, and it's something that I'd like to encourage.
That's a big change.
Yeah, but everybody thinks competition terrible. It's not at all. Yeah. People have a horrendous opinion of our industry.
You guys do get a bad rap a little.
But it's legitimate. It's legitimate. The majority of our industry is still absolute joke. It really is.
What's cowboys?
But they
make you look bad because you're charging a little bit more, sometimes a lot more, because of the quality and the warranty and the experience, and they're going, but I had a bad experience with these other guys.
Yeah.
I don't why.
Yes. We were talking actually in our first episode about a particular fan motor that's within a particular property. Actually, it's on the Palm. It's on a particular area of the Palm. And we had a really angry customer on the phone that said, your price is over double what I've received elsewhere. Now, the reality is we've got teams on the road, we've got vehicles on the road that are there to go and pick up parts. You've got overhead. We've got overhead, so there is a bit of margin that goes on there, but I'm like, no, this doesn't stack. So I asked them to send through the quote from the other people, and when I looked at it, they actually hadn't specified in detail what it was that they were doing. So we went back to the customer and said, okay, well, this is way below our cost price. There is only one supplier that we're aware of in the UAE for this particular part, and they're doing this below the cost of that. So what I think they're doing is something called rewinding, which is where they're rewinding this motor before refitting it. So it's the same one that you've currently got. They've told you it's a replacement. It's not. The other problem is that's a massive fire risk, and especially the way things are rewound here, which is not in a factory.
Sometimes I've seen it done by hand.
Yeah. But it's just nuts. It is lethal. And I said, look, you haven't been told that this is going on. Secondly, you're not aware of the danger of this, and why would you? It's not your specialist subject. Yeah. But thirdly, look, I'm really sorry. No, I'm not going to rewind this for you and match that price. If you want to be that dangerous with your own property where you're living with your kids, and quite often with AC, it's at night when you're asleep, then I just can't be a part of that. And you've got to draw the line somewhere with this. And at We Will Fix It, we're adamant that A, we're not going to put our customers in any danger, and secondly, there is only one way to do it, which is the right way. There's no other way. There's no shortcut. There's no cutting bits here and cutting bits there.
So what happened in that case? What did they do?
Do you know what? I don't know the outcome of that. I don't know whether or not they eventually went with us or not. I kind of stepped back at that point, unfortunately. I wish I had that to finish that story. Dan knows more on that one, so
pick his brain later.
Ask him. Maybe one for next week. I'll try and finish that one off.
Yeah. Just on that topic, when you're talking about the hand-wired fan, et cetera, in the fire, do you find more and more people are installing their smoke detectors and their CO2 detectors and those kind of things these days? Or, I go to a lot of houses, there's no smoke detectors anywhere.
It's an odd one. The carbon monoxide detectors were being installed in more recent developments as OEMs, but they're really unreliable. Really? So a lot of them have been deactivated, which is horrendous. Wow. But there's been a real problem with that. In terms of smoke alarms, I think it's improved.
Okay. Obviously in towers and in those buildings, they have fire systems in place.
Yeah. We've always tried to keep the price of that down as low as we can possibly get it, because it's a safety issue. So I think we're at like 100 dirhams fitted for smoke alarms, assuming people get 3. Yeah. And the reason for that is there isn't an apartment that I'm aware of, unless you're in something really small that doesn't need 3 smoke alarms. But the location of them is critical as well. You know, the idea is that you need to still have a route of exit, and secondly, you catch that as soon as you possibly can, and then it must be replicated. The smoke alarm, I actually did the most horrendous test when the family was asleep one night, which was I hit the smoke alarm, which was the furthest away from where we sleep, as a test, and to see who would wake up, and nobody did.
Really?
Yeah. It wasn't loud enough, because we normally keep the door closed to the kitchen.
As most people do.
Yeah. So at that point, it's quite clear, and we have it in our house, because obviously I hope I know what I'm doing with this. Yeah. So then there is another one for us at the bottom of the stairs. So at that point, it's come out of the kitchen up to where we're at. So that's the second one.
Escape routes becoming a problem then.
Top of the stairs. And then if you have an elongated hallway, you should then have additionals that are there. But everybody needs to plan their route of exit. Yeah. We know the stories of Dubai. It's not something that's just a myth. So people need to think about that long and hard.
So if I give you guys a call, you could come and fit, if someone's listening, you could come and fit smoke detectors?
Of course.
Okay, easy.
Yeah. And like I say, it's not something that I want to make a lot of money out of, for the simple reason that it's safety.
Well, and the other side of it is, though, and we've talked about this before, you're going to fit a smoke detector. You're not just putting a piece of double-sided tape up on the wall and putting it there. You got to drill a couple holes.
Absolutely.
Got to put in the right. There's a job to doing this and making sure it's in the right place and accessible.
But for safety stuff like that, it's not a job that you'd think about trying to make money on. It's just safety.
800-FIX, 800-349. Make sure you've got your smoke detectors.
Absolutely.
It's that simple. You know, and I think we're going to wrap the show for today.
We've done it again, haven't we? We were saying about
I'm looking
this
at the
before.
list. I think we
Have we covered any of it?
Yes.
James, we
talked about doggy doors. Hold on, I'm going to check the list here. We talked doggy doors and
swelling door. We did that one.
Yeah.
But you know, I prefer this style because when you and I used to be on 103.8, it used to be that we had to be quite careful in terms of sticking to our list, didn't it?
Yeah.
But the great thing about a podcast is it's a bit more relaxed and we can kind of talk about whatever comes up.
Yeah, we got 2 things on a list of. Okay, we did 2%.
I think we've done brilliant. I think we aced it at 2%. Get ready for next week. And we started off, the first third was pretty much car stuff. So Glenn's in trouble for his next episode, isn't he?
Yeah, we've got
Glenn the car guy we've just destroyed his next episode. I'm really proud of that fact.
Well, we'll also talk tech as well. I think we're gonna talk a little. So I was thinking,
I'm good at tech.
we got a whole list of things here, but I think we'll talk a little bit about tech and home repair and that kind of stuff too. So we got a whole bunch to talk about.
Wonderful.
Do it again next week. Same place, same time.
Absolutely.
And Dan will be back. So you know what that means.
Hopefully.
We're going to be talking skiing and Bulgaria.
We
might not even get to anything about.
I know.
And family vacations. I think that's always a good one too. Because
absolutely.
taking the family on a vacation. That's
especially when you're ill as Dan was. My goodness. And the rest of the family. Hope you're all better now.
Yeah, me too.
Dear, oh dear.
Thank you very much.
Not at all. Anytime.
WeWillFixIt.com is where you can find Colin and Dan. 800-FIX, 800-349, or WeWillFixIt.com. It's that simple. Do it all again real soon. Thank you very much.
Not at all.
You've been listening to the We Will Fix It Show, a Podaholiks podcast with Colin from WeWillFixIt.com and myself, James Pikeway. If you want to find out more about what we're doing here at Podaholiks, check us out across the socials at Podaholiks with a K. And if you want to drop us a line, podaholikswithak@gmail.com. Thank you very much for listening. Share the link, and we'll talk to you again really soon.